So the Pokemon exists within a kind of hyperspace, the pocket monster. The Pokeballs themselves, if you watch the documentary series Pokemon, they'll show you that the Pokemaster has these Pokeballs. The Pokeballs, as the Pokemaster carries the Pokeballs, they're quite small. They're like little seeds. When the Pokemaster retrieves his Pokeballs, all of a sudden the Pokeballs increase in size. They increase from like a small little nut, and then they increase like to the size of an onion. And then he throws his Pokeball, and the Pokeball is somewhat of a clamshell, but it's also, you can think of it as a sphere, which is the perfect monad in the Platonic system. And the Pokeball unfurls, much like Pandora's box, and so it represents the unleashing of these divine energies. There's then like this energetic field where the Pokemon emerges from the Pokeball. And you look at the size of the Pokemon. In some cases, you have these legendary Pokemon such as Entei, Pokemon, trying to think of some other Pokemon here. But you have some very large Pokemon, which are these legendary Pokemon, sort of like godlike Pokemon, sort of titanic in Greek mythology, where like giants, they can move mountains. Some of these Pokemon, Kyogre, I think, is one of these Pokemon. They can move mountains, they can move oceans, they can cause tsunamis. So they are, in a sense, a reference to the Japanese concept in Shinto of these gods of nature, this animist spirit, which also we find following Gebser in previous religious and spiritual forms within Europe and within Africa. The mountain is a god, and the stream is a god, and the ocean is a god. And so these Pokemon represent the primordial forces of society. The Pokeball, in some sense, represents the reversal of Pandora's box, where the Olympian Pokemaster, the Asir of the Pokemaster, he has defeated the giant in combat. He's defeated the Titan of the Pokemon, and he has entrapped the Pokemon within the Pokeball, which is this sphere, which sort of represents, in a sense, it's like an eyeball, and it has the two colors white and red as a dualist symbology. Now, what do those two colors represent? Well, we could think of many things, but typically the color red is associated in human psychology with passion. So when we think about red, we think about love and romance, but also blood and violence. So the color red is a very thumotic color. And in the Pokeball, the color red is on top. So the thumos sits on top of this Platonic system. You can also reference the yin-yang within East Asia, especially Korea. But we have this Pokeball, we have the thumotic element, the red is on top, and on the bottom is white, representing purity, representing absence of earthly aspects. On the earth, I mean, there is quartz, right? There are certain things which appear to be white. If you stare at the sun, it kind of looks white in the center. Clouds appear to be white. But whiteness usually represents a kind of purity. The snow, peace. So whiteness could be said to represent, in some ways, the priest class, which is not thumotic, which is actually anti-thumotic. The priest class attempts to conquer the thumos through contemplation, meditation, and prayer. And so the Pokeball, in a sense, represents this dynamic of the thumotic element in opposition to the priestly element, wherein the thumos sits on top and the priestly exists on bottom, which is a supporting structure. We can think about this in terms of God or the logos, the laws of the universe, giving rise to living creatures. God creates through logos. He creates these creatures which are embodiments of thumos, which then live on and perpetuate themselves through the willful desire. So this represents, in a way, this kind of tree of life encapsulated with a platonic sphere. You'll notice that whenever the Pokemaster throws the Pokeball, each and every time that Pokeball always lands with the white on bottom and the red on top. So it's very esoteric. It's a very spiritual legend, the legend of the Pokemon and the Pokemasters. What is a Pokemon? It's a deep question. What is the true nature of the Pokemon as a force of nature? The Pokemon has been conquered by the Pokemaster. The Pokemaster often are represented as children. Ash Ketchum. Ash Ketchum. He is but a child, and yet he has mastered the monster, the Pokemon Pikachu. Pikachu is a god of thunder and lightning. He is a god of electricity. And the fact that Pikachu is possibly the most popular Pokemon of all time is a testament to two deep psychological and spiritual truths. Because what does Pikachu represent? On the one hand, Pikachu represents the Industrial Revolution. Pikachu represents Thomas Edison, the lightning bolt. He represents Nikola Tesla. He represents the electrical revolution, which gave rise to modern technology, the internet, the hyperspace that we are now encapsulated within this live stream. So Pikachu represents all of that. But Pikachu is also a mouse. He is also cute. He has red circles on his cheeks, which represent bashfulness, embarrassment. Pikachu is not bold. Pikachu has not become who he truly is. He does not represent himself as a terrible god of thunder like Thor or perhaps Yahweh in some instances. He does not represent him as a terrible god of nature and of technology and hypermodernity. No, he's not a Lovecraftian creature. He's not a great storm cloud. He's not foreboding. He's not scary. Pikachu is in a way genderless, androgynous, cute. Pikachu is but a baby. There is an interesting contrast in the morphology of the Pikachu creature, because Pikachu himself is like a fetus. He is soft, he is squishy, he is like a bean, but his tail is jagged. His tail actually represents the thunderbolt, which of course was a fascist symbol prior to World War II in Britain, the thunderbolt, as well as the SS runes. So there is a fascist element to Pikachu. There is a reactionary element to Pikachu. There's an angular masculine element, but that's the tail. And when Pikachu approaches you, you can't quite see the tail of Pikachu. You don't quite recognize the angularity, the masculinity, the fascism inherent within the Pikachu creature. All you see is this kind of cutesy, he's got the red circles on his cheeks. He is bashful. He's like a fetus. He is a baby. He is in some ways genderless. He's in some ways both male and female. The male Pikachu and the female Pikachu basically look the same. So from the front, Pikachu looks purely innocent. There's a superficiality of Pikachu where he is innocent. He has been conquered. He has been castrated. And yet there is still this tail, which you could say is his remaining phallic energies, which are aggressive. And that is where his lightning comes from. And so this Pikachu, the Pikachu creature, is a metaphor for the way in which liberalism introduces technology into our society. We introduce technology as, oh, look at this cute little app on our phone, or, oh, you can watch a YouTube live stream, or, oh, this is so cute. This is, the way Facebook advertises itself, the way Google advertises itself, of you can look at baby pictures. You can look at cute cats. Remember that? Remember back in the day when the internet was about funny cats? Oh, the internet is just for looking at funny pictures of cats. It's nothing serious. It's nothing scary. But once you've sort of accepted the Pikachu creature into your life, it becomes too late. Once the Pikachu creature passes by you and you are in the wake of the Pikachu creature, the Pokemon Then you see the angular tail. Then you see the powerful fascist energies of Pikachu, the energies of destruction. And by then it's too late. You've been zapped. You've been zapped. You're blasting off once again. Team Rocket, you're in the stratosphere. You're a little point. You're a little star in the sky. You know, you've lost your identity. You are no longer part of Team Rocket. You are now just a blip in the sky. And yet you're forced to go through this process over and over again, even though we recognize the truth that Pikachu as an embodiment of the internet is destructive. He is not as he appears. He is not simply a little baby. He is actually a ferocious thunder god. But even as we recognize that, and even as we are blasted off into the stratosphere and we become a little star in the sky, we still must again and again confront the Pikachu monster. Even though we recognize the terrible consequences of the internet, we still have to keep coming back. We are stuck in this vicious perennial cycle. Our will, you know, we see the Pikachu character, we see, oh, he's so cute, and we approach him, and then he zaps us, and we go into space. We have to keep coming back. And the fact that Team Rocket is always blasting off, and they're always thrown into the sky, I mean, what happens to them, right? Do they die in the vacuum of space? Do they fall to the earth and crash? I mean, what happens to them? Team Rocket, Jesse and James, must eternally reincarnate to face the Pikachu monster. That's the decision we're faced with every single day when we wake up in the morning, check our phones, go on the internet, watch a stream. We are Jesse and James. And the interesting thing about Jesse and James is they are implicitly LGBTQ characters. Jesse, James, Team Rocket blasting off once again. There is something there. There is a ideology, I think, of sexual revolution in Jesse and James. I think if you really look at the Jesse James character and the fact that they have Meowth, Meowth is like a parody of Pikachu, and Meowth represents the merchant. Meowth's superpower, he doesn't have any. Meowth, I mean, we know who Meowth is. We know who Meowth is. He's got a coin on his head. He's somehow related to the ancient Egyptians in one way or another. Meowth, he doesn't have any physical powers. He has the powers of scheming. He has the power of the coin. And he is accompanying Jesse and James, who are servants of the Team Rocket Corporation, whose job is to try to conquer the Pokemon, steal the Pokemon. They represent the evil corporation that is trying to create this controlled opposition of Jesse and James. So there's this whole conflict here. I mean, it's a complicated thing. I mean, the Pokemon represent the Olympians, then the corporations are directing Jesse and James, and then they have Meowth. So it's a very complicated thing. I mean, Pokemon, it's a very deep series. There is this conflict between pragmatic identities and idealistic ones. Maybe we should just look at groups this way, the ideal and the actual. Okay. Well, what does that mean? My question then is, are we pragmatically Christian or are we pragmatically liberal? Then what becomes, even if we could agree that in some sense, idealistically, we would be something different. And I think actually these are related. I think ultimately we can't fully separate pragmatic effects and results from the ideal roots of a system. That is a way to resolve this internally. From the outside, group membership has to mean something concrete. The apple-onion dispute is part of a larger fruit-vegetable conflict. Yeah, I think they're having a problem with that in the Middle East right now. The fruit-vegetable conflict over there. Who represents the fruits and who represents the vegetables? I mean, I'm inclined to call the Iranians the fruits of the Middle East. That's just me. People can disagree. Just to me, I see Iran as a fruit, and I see Saudi Arabia as a vegetable. But that's just my intuition. You can see my bias there. The tomatoes we should think of as mercenaries. Warrior merchant tomatoes. Yeah, the different classes. Well, clearly meat is the warrior class. Vegetables, I mean, vegetables would sort of, in a way, are vegetables the priest class or are they the merchant class? Maybe the more important question is who are the fruits? Is that because I feel like the priests being ascetics, they like vegetables more, but then also there's a lot of fruity metaphors within the priest class. This is difficult. What else do we have besides fruits and vegetables? Legumes, beans. Beans are very important in the Pythagorean system. The pear is the answer. Yeah, pears are pretty bland though. Pears, it's like they're sweet, but they're not super sweet. So I don't know about pears. I'm not like against, like who could be against pears? Who looks at a pear and thinks, oh, this is terrible? But the pear, it's okay. It's bland. Like you're eating a pear and you're like, is this ripe? You're eating a pear and you're like, did they take this right off the tree like way too early? That's my experience. Every time I've ever eaten a pear, I'm like, is this how it's supposed to taste? Like, I feel like it's a little bland. It's not bad. It's just bland. Pears are like the bread of the fruit system. So I don't know about pears. On which side does the tomato fight? Are they like Renaissance pikemen? The pomegranate is the true synthesis. I am a fan of I don't eat them a lot because it takes a lot of time and energy to eat a pomegranate. There's so many seeds. Pomegranates are very Greek.